So before we start off this video, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for clicking on this. I know you probably had better things to do, but you decided to watch this instead. So that had to be somewhat interesting to you, right? I'm doing something right. Anyways, please no hate. This took Grandma and I a while to do. This was an English project I had to do, and I decided to turn it into something more. Also, by the way, welcome to our new channel. We post as often as we can. Very high quality people, and yeah, hope you enjoy. So let's get on with the video.
Okay.
So this is my grandma. Grandma, what's your name?
Diana Heiser.
And what are you going to be talking about today?
I'm going to be talking about my experience with John F. Kennedy and Ted Kennedy, his brother.
Alrighty. Are you ready, Grandma?
Yes, I am. Hi. I'm here to talk to you about an experience I had as a young girl. I've had a lot of very exciting experiences, but this is one that tops my list, one I always remember. It's about Ted Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, president. In September of '61, Ted Kennedy came to Flint, Michigan, and they needed some young people to greet them at the airport, Bishop. And so I was one that volunteered, and I was only around 10 years old. And we went and we met him at the airport. It was a rainy day. I remembered they had to use umbrellas. We get into Flint on Saginaw Street, where the Durant Hotel is, which was a very classy restaurant and motel at the time, and that's where people like the Kennedys stayed when they came to town, which wasn't very often. But anyway, Ted was very nice. I got to shake his hand at the airport, and I got to shake it at the Durant Hotel. He was very handsome to me as a young girl. He was very friendly, had a beautiful smile. And here is the picture of the car he was riding in when it got stopped on Saginaw Street in Flint. And with my Brownie camera, I took a picture of it where it says, "Welcome, Ted Kennedy." And I always kept it. And then, as he was able to get out of the car, I took this picture of Ted with my Brownie camera with his umbrella, because it was drizzling rain, and you can see what a beautiful smile he has. And then in October of '61, John F. Kennedy came campaigning to Flint, and the same group of young people that was there to meet Ted was there to meet John. We shook hands. I shook hands with John at the airport, and he gave me a big smile. "Hi, how are you?" That sort of thing, and it just felt great touching his hand. And we got to the Durant Hotel, and we went in and we had breakfast together, all of us, big wigs and some of the politicians and the group of young people that were there. And they had the tables lined up right in front of the building, and that's where President Kennedy sat and his bodyguards and other important politicians. And our table was set right across from them, facing them. And I got up to take a picture of him before the meal started, and my hands shook so bad because he was just so handsome. And I was so nervous that he smiled at me and winked, and he said to his bodyguard, who was standing behind him, he said, "Would you go over there and take that young lady's picture for her? She seems to be a little nervous." And he chuckled a little bit. And the guy did come over, and he took my camera, and he took the picture, but the flash, for some reason, didn't go off. And it was a Brownie camera. And so I never got real pictures of John F. Kennedy. But that was a real exciting experience on that day. And then, of course, he was voted in that November election to be president. And naturally, he took all over in '62 or '61. And anyway, it was a great feeling, and so I wrote to the White House because I didn't have pictures of John F. Kennedy. So I wrote to the White House and I asked them if they could send me a nice picture of John himself and one of his family, and they did. This is the one they sent me, and I've kept it all this time, and I just love it. Of course, it's a it's a printed picture, like they make up a lot of them to send to people who write and ask for them. It's got a printed stamped signature. It's not his real signature. You know, there's so many pictures that go out. That's the way they did it, and they still do it today. They did send me also a picture of Jacqueline and the kids when they were little. Now this is Jacqueline and Bobby and Caroline. And notice little Bobby's toes. This is a real picture. There's no printed signatures on it. And I just love it because it's mom loving her kids. And the kids look like they're really having a nice time with mom. So this is a treasure. These are pictures I will hand down to my grandchildren. They're a great memory for me. They are very familiar with the story. John Kennedy did a lot when he was in office. He was for everyone and rights. He did a lot of work with Cuba. We were in bad times with Cuba at the time. I remember that very well. And it could have been a very serious catastrophe. But he worked and stressed himself so much. It worked, because that catastrophe didn't happen. We're very lucky there. And he was a man that made words in one of his speeches, and those words have always stuck with the people. And that was, don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And those words have always stayed with us since then, and they're still with us today. He had a great sense of humor. He joked a lot. One thing a lot of people didn't know, he had a bone disease. And John F. Kennedy was in pain the majority of his life. He had had 2 surgeries, major surgeries, just before he took presidency. So a lot of times he was in more pain, mainly because of stress you deal with being a president. But he did well. He never showed his pain. And he carried on with the country. And then, of course, the sad day came when he went to Dallas, Texas, and that was November 22nd, 1963. They tried to talk him into going into a enclosed, glass-protected vehicle, but it was a hot day, and he insisted on going in a convertible with the top down. And sadly to say, he was shot. I'm not going to go into the details about that. Most people know it, but there's a lot of documentations on it. All you have to do is look it up on the computer, or the library, but the information is there. And so at that time, all our hearts were broke. The nation really mourned for him. And he always reminded me of Abraham Lincoln in a way, because a lot of their ways were the same, a lot of their thoughts were the same as far as our country. And really, those are my 2 favorite presidents, is Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. But that was an experience I'll never forget. And I was so fortunate and so lucky to have. I could not have it any better than it was. And that's about all I'm going to tell you about it, to keep this nice and short. And I hope with all the work that Wendy went through for this, I hope she gets a good grade. Good for her. She did a good job. And you everybody have a nice day.
I just wanna be part of